America has been politically divided for decades, with Democrats and Republicans shaping policies, culture, and the future of the country. But in 2025, how do these two parties compare? What do they believe? And how have their stances evolved in recent years? In this video, we'll break down the major differences between Democrats and Republicans, from the economy to social issues, healthcare, and more. Stay tuned to get a clear, unbiased look at where America's two biggest political parties stand today. One of the biggest differences between Democrats and Republicans has always been economic policy, and 2025 is no different. White check mark. Democrats typically support higher taxes on corporations and the wealthy to fund government programs, infrastructure, and social services. They push for a higher minimum wage, more worker protections, and investments in renewable energy. 1. Example: the Biden administration's 2024 corporate tax proposal aimed to raise the tax rate on big businesses from 21% to 28%, funding social programs like healthcare and clean energy projects. 2. Example: in states like California and New York, Democratic leaders continue pushing for $20+ minimum wages to help low-income workers keep up with inflation. White check mark. Republicans, on the other hand, advocate for lower taxes across the board, believing that cutting taxes for businesses and individuals will stimulate growth. They emphasize deregulation, free markets, and domestic energy production, including oil and natural gas. 1. Example: Republican-led states like Florida and Texas have resisted minimum wage hikes, arguing that businesses should set wages based on the market. 2. Example: the 2017 Trump tax cuts remain a core part of Republican policy, with many in the party advocating to extend these cuts beyond their expiration dates. In 2025, this debate continues, especially around tax cuts, government spending, and how to balance economic growth with rising national debt. Healthcare has been a major political battleground for years. White check mark. Democrats generally support expanding government healthcare programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. Some even advocate for a universal healthcare system to reduce costs for all Americans. 1. Example: states like California are exploring state-run universal healthcare programs to cover all residents. 2. Example: the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 allowed Medicare to negotiate drug prices, something Democrats want to expand further in 2025. White check mark. Republicans prioritize private healthcare options and reducing government involvement in medical care. They argue that competition in the private sector lowers costs and improves quality while keeping taxes down. 1. Example: GOP leaders in states like Texas and Florida have pushed for expanding private insurance options rather than government-run programs. 2. Example: Republicans continue to push back against Obamacare mandates, arguing that forcing people to buy insurance or pay fines is unfair. Immigration remains one of the most hotly debated topics. White check mark. Democrats generally support pathways to citizenship for undocumented immigrants, the protection of DACA, deferred action for childhood arrivals, recipients, and a less restrictive approach to asylum seekers. 1. Example: in 2024, the Biden administration announced a plan to fast-track green cards for Dreamers who have been in the U.S. since childhood. 2. Example: Democratic-led cities like New York and Chicago continue to support sanctuary city policies, protecting undocumented immigrants from federal deportation efforts. White check mark. Republicans emphasize stronger border security, including continued investment in border walls, increased ICE enforcement, and strict asylum policies to deter illegal immigration. 1. Example: in 2025, Texas continues to pass state-level immigration laws, deploying state troopers to assist federal Border Patrol efforts. 2. Example: many Republicans support mandatory E-Verify laws, requiring businesses to check the immigration status of workers before hiring. Climate policy is another key dividing line. White checkmark: Democrats push for strong climate policies, including carbon emissions regulations, renewable energy investments, and international climate agreements. 1. Example: the Biden administration rejoined the Paris Climate Accord and introduced carbon reduction targets. 2. Example: states like California have passed laws requiring 100% clean energy by 2045. White checkmark: Republicans focus on energy independence, often supporting domestic oil, coal, and natural gas industries. 1. Example: Republican leaders in states like Texas and West Virginia have sued to block federal regulations on coal plants. 2. Example: many Republicans support policies that make the U.S. a top global oil producer, reducing reliance on foreign energy. White checkmark: Democrats support abortion rights, access to gender-affirming healthcare, and stricter gun control laws. 1. Example: Democratic-led states like California and New York have passed laws protecting abortion access despite Supreme Court rulings allowing states to ban it. 2. Example: many Democrats push for federal gun control laws, such as assault weapon bans and background checks. White checkmark: Republicans advocate for stronger gun rights, restrictions on gender-affirming medical procedures, and state-level abortion laws. 1. Example: GOP-led states like Texas and Florida have passed laws banning gender-affirming treatments for minors. 2. Example: the NRA and many Republicans support constitutional carry laws, allowing gun owners to carry without a permit. No matter where you stand politically, one thing is clear: the debates of 2025 will impact generations to come. So, what do you think? Are political divisions growing wider, or is there room for common ground? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more content on politics, history, and current events.